The Scoop with Ryan Scoop Woodhams and our very special guest tonight. Glad to have Joey Clams on here with me. How you doing, sir?
I might have not have been the best Yankee, but I'm the proudest Yankee. I want to thank the Lord for making me a Yankee. Those were quotes from Billy Martin, and the other quote was from Joe DiMaggio, the Yankee clip. How you doing? How's everybody? Let's go. Yankee baseball. That's real Yankee baseball.
I love it. Let's starting in with the quotes already. Yes, this is going to be in contrast to last week where I was on talking about a bunch of different sports, a bunch of different topics. We're going to jump in today hard to the off season for the New York Yankees and to some real baseball talk. You and I have had a lot of dialogue on the main show and on other shows. And now we're going to get to hear what some thoughts about what the off season and just kind of compare where we're at in terms of mindset going into this off season.
I
Um,
was all. My thing with you is, I know you're a diehard, Yankee fan for 3 years, but I'm trying to help to help you to see with these the owner and Cashman what they do, and they try to fool the people. And I think maybe you're starting to get it a little bit. Are you? Just trying to see
I,
that they were
I
trying to fool you.
appreciate it. My first game was actually 16 years ago, so a little longer than 3 years. That
Oh,
I first game that I went to, but no, it's I'm definitely I was an ardent Cashman defender for a while. Definitely am not the same way that I used to be on that. Still, would defend a lot of his record earlier on, but the last several years have just been objectively terrible, and not conducive with consistent with the standard that the Yankees claim to hold. So definitely not us something that we're proud to see, obviously. But I think, excuse me. But going into this off season, I'll jump right in unless you have any. We kind of do opening statements on the main show. Unless you have anything you want to start in with, I'll jump right into the questions I had for you.
go ahead. We talked. You gave me the agenda. We went over it. It's
Yeah,
pretty
no,
ready to
yeah,
go.
no,
Don't
I
worry about it. I'll let you know.
sounds yeah. I think going into this off season, I think the best place to start is just. I mean, you obviously have very strong opinions on this team, as do I. I'm not sure any of them will match up, but just what do you think if you had to put your, whether you want to call it your Steinbrenner hat, your Cashman hat, whatever. Um, what do you think is if you'd say there's the one move, it's someone you can get, someone you can trade away, a free agent you could sign, uh, anything of that ilk. What do you think is the main move you would take over the team tomorrow and say this is the first thing I'm doing?
Well, I mean, the first thing, if you want to go, you got to reinstruct that farm system down there, and what's because these kids get sent up, and they're not prepared. We have to improve defensively. Defensively, you have to improve. We have to improve up the middle defensively. We need a third baseman. We need a defensive, steady second baseman. We need an outfielder. I don't know if Rizzo, he looks like he's done at first base. Uh,
Unfortunately,
he looks like he's long in the tooth.
right?
I didn't agree with re-signing him. I thought we could have went after an Olson or a Freddie Freeman like that, a lefty. We got to get more power lefties in the lineup that could hit doubles and hit home runs over the shortest porch in right field in baseball. But going back, I know you're gonna when you got something to say from 2017, so I'll wait for that. But we gotta be better defensively. We're terrible. We're the worst team in turning double plays. We never could turn in double plays. That means we leave our pitcher out there for a long time, extending the innings, and that's how we lose games. Gleyber Torres is a horrible defensive second baseman. Horrible. And he was a talented kid. They never improve anybody everybody that came to the Yankees never improved. They got worse. They never were disciplined. They never were spoke to, or there was nobody policing that dugout and telling these kids you gotta hustle. You can't do it this way. Showing them the right way how to do it. They're fundamentally bad in every aspect of in all their positions except for a couple. But most of their positions, they're bad defensively.
Yeah, I think in terms of improving defense, you actually started off talking about the farm system, which I can't say that I disagree with you at all on that. There's a fundamental, and I've chirped about this before. I look at everybody who's like it's Cashman or Boone, yada yada yada. I'm looking at everybody and saying, how does Damon Oppenheimer get off behind this? He's the executive behind Amateur Scouting. He's been there since the early 2000s, almost as long as Cashman's been the GM. This guy has not drafted and developed one elite player offensively since Aaron Judge, or even before Aaron Judge, really. And on the pitching side, who you have? You got Jordan Montgomery on his ledger as a pitcher, but and then you traded him for Harrison Bader, which I've said before. I agreed with that move at the time, but has definitely obviously didn't pan out, seeing as Montgomery just won the World Series with Texas,
Right.
along with half the other team being made up of former Yankees.
1 second. You
What's
said
up?
you with the move one time. You know you gave away a lefty starting pitcher for a guy in a walking boot. Okay?
That rotation, in fact, it goes a play off of what you just said. You talked about defense and whatnot. You were talking about getting the best defensive center fielder in a position where, if I'll remind you, we had just had Aaron Hicks, who was one of the worst showings on that field in recent Yankees memory. Who actually made it. Actually made you sometimes miss the days, the 14 minutes where Jacoby Ellsbury was healthy. And I just looking at what he was doing, or rather not doing, bringing in Harrison Bader. And yes, if that rotation had been healthy and that rotation had been performing the way that they should have been, Harrison or Jordan Montgomery would not have been a top four starter in that rotation in the postseason. So yes, I 100% agree with that move at the time. It worked out about as poorly as it could have, but I have to, if I'm evaluating how a move, whether it was the right move or not, I have to also think back at the time. I can't just play revisionist history and say, "Oh, they never should have made this move because it didn't work out." That you have to also think about the way it was in the moment when they actually made that transaction.
He wasn't when they made that trade. He wasn't going to get in the lineup until the end of September.
You, you're you yourself have said the Yankees don't play to win games in August; they play to win games in October.
Okay, but here's where you go. You're giving up an outfielder for a lefty arm at Yankee Stadium. That's a terrible. You don't do that. You don't give up arms. You don't give up, and especially when you're in the playoffs. You need a lefty pitcher. He was a quality starting pitcher. You do not give him up for a center fielder that was in a walking boot at the time. And then he didn't do anything for us. That was a terrible trade. And look,
Yes, I know it didn't. I'm not saying the trade worked out. Obviously, it worked out like a lead balloon because Texas got, made off like bandits. But I'm saying going back to actually when the move was made, you're going to tell me in that moment with the pitching depth that we did have at the time, you're going to tell me we didn't need a speed and defense center fielder who was the best glove in the game at that position and who was stealing bases like nobody on the team except for Gleyber Torres. People keep saying we need defense and we need a well-rounded lineup. That's exactly what the move to get Bader was to do.
but you don't give up starting pitching. You don't give up a lefty starting pitcher for an outfielder. It's not you're not bringing in Ken Griffey Jr. You need pitching is what wins games. Pitching what wins in baseball is pitching. Always it's pitching. That's what wins. Pitching and defense. Pitching and defense. Pitching comes first. If you wanted to give up somebody else to get the center fielder, no problem. You don't give up a lefty starting pitcher in your rotation. That's insane.
Before I jump back on that, I'm going to just get through a few comments because I'm already falling behind here. Carson Claus is jumping in and saying, let me see if I can get this to work. There we go. Coming in and saying, I don't know if he was hacked or not, but it said person turquoise waving. I assume that's supposed to be an image that just didn't show up on here. But how you doing, Carson? Good to see you. Thanks for tuning in. Kurt Valenti says, "What's up, guys? This is a classic. I know Kurt's been waiting for this for the longest time, as have I." Kenny Kirkpatrick's coming on saying Joey Clams for president. Yeah, I can't disagree with you on there. That would be something I would wait in line from 5 a.m. to vote for. And then Kenny's coming in and echoing what you said. He was hurt, Scoops, when we made the trade. I know he was hurt, but at the same time, again, you look at what. In fact, I can probably go back and find videos of people on the show saying it directly. Look at what the lineup was lacking at the time and what we knew we needed going into the postseason. Pitching has never in the postseason since that 2017 series against the Astros. Pitching has not been our undoing. Our undoing has been not timely hitting, has been defense, and has been being statues on and lampposts on the base paths. That's what they were trying to correct. Again, the trade did not work out. The trade in result was a failure, but the mindset behind making that trade, I still can defend. That was the last comment for that.
Jump in. Pitching has been our downfall in the playoffs. When we lost that playoff game, that wild card game to the Red Sox, why'd we lose that game? Because you sent the pitcher out there that was hurt with a pulled groin and cold. You didn't have nobody. You didn't have anybody else. You didn't have Otani. I mean, you didn't have what's his name, Tanaka.
Tanaka.
You didn't re-sign Tanaka. So that was a Tanaka spot right there. You had no pitching. And you got beat by the Red Sox. You had a guy going out there pitching with a bad groin.
Well, I do have to point this out. Unfortunately, which again, I was one of the people I was super disappointed that we didn't bring back Tanaka. I think that was one of our biggest losses over the last few years. And I'll make the same argument because I'll go back to something that you said. You talked about first baseman, which I do agree. It's been, after he started out looking like an MVP, I don't know. I mean, I know he had the concussion. So as someone who's had, 2 concussions myself, I'm crossing my fingers and praying that, he bounces back from that for his own health first, and then obviously for the team after that. But, you look at Matt Olson, the Yankees were never going to give up what the Atlanta Braves did for Matt Olson. I don't even know if the Yankees had a package comparable to that the Braves wanted. Again, I don't know how those discussions went. And that goes back to what we said before. It's the frustrating part is not having. There was a period of time where the Yankees had a farm system that people were like, oh, okay, I'll move this great piece if you're willing to trade these players. The problem was that they overvalued their prospects so damn badly that they ended up keeping guys who turned into pumpkins, and the guys that they could have had. That's the awful part of it, is the fact that going back to what I was saying about amateur scouting, that they can't draft and develop or go out and get, to save their lives. Guys who can come up, and that's what Houston was doing. That's what Atlanta's done a fantastic job at, better than anybody in baseball, which is get your own guys young, either on the international market, in the draft, whatever it is, sign them to good contracts early so that you've got them under control and you're not losing them when they get to their prime to free agency, but you're able to draft and develop them into the players that they can be to maximize their potential. That's where I do agree with you, is the fact that they have not been anybody that they've brought up, whether it was a top prospect, traded for a young player, whatever, either flatlines or regresses heavily when they get to that point. And that I do agree with you is the real issue. But
what I want to tell you, if you see the people that they bring up, a Gary Sanchez, what position does he play? He's not a catcher, right? Miguel.
Go back and look at my old content, because Gary Sanchez is one of my least favorite Yankees of all time.
Gary Sanchez is an unbelievable hitter, right? But he's not a catcher.
He was at one point. He wasn't even that when we got rid of him.
Well, but here's the thing: they go after, because here's how they were building the team. They were building the team with righty power hitters that could hit the ball over the fence and strike out 100 times. They didn't care if they had a frying pan for a glove. They had Gary Sanchez. He wasn't a catcher. Miguel Andujar, right? There was no position for him. Oh, he's not a third baseman. He's not a left fielder. That's another DH. That's a softball player. Sanchez is another softball player. Voigt that they got. That's another guy that couldn't play defense. He had a frying pan for a glove. Frazier, another guy that couldn't play defense. All these guys they signed and they brought up, none of them could play defense, and they didn't have a position. They clogged their team with DHs. That's what they did. Righty DHs, big softball players. That's what they did. From 2017, when Cashman finally got his hooks, this is his first manager that he hired without Steinbrenner being there, without George there. This was his guy that nobody respected in that dugout. They didn't play for him. They never hustled for him. He never got better. You know what they need around them? If you're going to keep Boone as your manager, you better have a great coaching staff around them. You better have a great old school bench coach. That's how it is. You got to have old Yankees in there or guys that played in the major leagues, not guys that were back up third string JV catchers as a senior on their high school team. Guys that never pitched in the minor leagues as coaches. Those guys don't know how to police a dugout. You need guys that played. You need Yankees in there that played. Like, hey, since I've been watching baseball, all I seen was old time, old school, winning Yankees in the dugout as coaches. Yogi Berra, Mel Elston, Billy Martin, Willie Randall. I'll keep going. Lee Mazzilli, guys that won. You never seen,
Well, the
but you
the funny part about that, about going back to, people who are,
never
oh, sorry.
seen. This is bad. This is bad.
Well, I know it's bad. It's the worst team in the last 30 years. But I'm looking at, everybody, and this is the part. This is one thing I don't understand. And please help. As they said in, what was that movie, Philadelphia. Please explain to me, like, please explain this to me like I'm 5 years old, because there's an element to this I can't get through my thick head, which is, how is hiring Don? Everyone's clamoring for Don Mattingly in particular, which I don't get at all. He seems like a decent manager. He seems like a decent guy. And maybe he would be, someone to good to be over. But they talk about bringing the Yankees back to their winning ways. Don Mattingly was the first baseman in the '70s and the mid '80s during the period of time when the Yankees were terrible. So I don't
Oh,
understand, except for that one year in 1978.
Don Mattingly wasn't there in the '70s. He came up in '83, and you know what? Don Mattingly carried the Yankees when only one team from your division made the playoffs. There wasn't six teams making it from the American League. Only two teams won the division in the East, and the team that won in the West. The Yankees had no pitching when he was there. He was the only thing. He carried the Yankees. Don Mattingly, you know what Don Mattingly did when he got to the playoffs? They finally got the wild card. He got there. Don Mattingly's a winner. Don Mattingly's a winner. That guy came through with so much in the clutch.
I
Don
like winning titles.
Joe Torre never won anything, but you know what? He had a good supporting class around him. He had Zimmer, who's a baseball guy. He had Willie Randolph, who's been through it all. The Bronx Zoo was a Yankee. Nobody's seen more than what Willie Randolph seen. He was on your staff. Lee Mazzilli, Mel Stoudemire. That's what you got to surround yourself. Don Manning would surround himself with a coaching staff with winners and people that know the game of baseball. And they wouldn't let that happen when it went on in this dugout and on that field for 6 years. It was the worst base running I seen, the worst defensive play I seen. This second baseman, they ruined Gleyber Torres. You could have fixed him. They never fixed him. They never fixed anybody. You never fixed Sanchez. You never
Well,
fixed. You never fixed anybody.
the Sanchez thing, the thing that I think people forget with him particularly. Now this isn't for everybody that you name, but for Sanchez particularly, and and to an extent Clint Frazier. The thing that I think people are missing on with Gary Sanchez is that this guy was known to have an attitude problem for the time, for the longest time. He was a problem person, or not person, but a problem player coming up through, and that's why he took so damn long to get to the majors. They signed him, I think, in 2010 as an international free agent, and he didn't get to the majors until. I'm sure that had something to do with it, because how many times have you seen a player? It wasn't his performance; he's performing offensively fine. So how many times have you seen a guy who performs decently offensively at every level take seven long? I have to believe that there was something on the maturity side that was a problem. And you can say, well, the team should have worked on that, but some of that's on the player as well. And that's another thing too, is that it's the fans are like giving passes to some of these players, that giving passes to DJ LeMahieu for suddenly forgetting how to hit the baseball, which I don't understand. Now, Clams, I'm going to go right back to you, but I'm going to get through these questions because they're piling up fast and furious here. We've got Kenny coming in and saying the trade was he's going back to the Harrison Bader. The trade was a failure because Cashman traded Bader to the Reds, not because we traded Montgomery for him. Okay, so he's calling it a failure because of the way that it ended, not necessarily the way that we got him. Okay, I can see the logic there, because I wasn't too happy with trading him to Cincinnati either. Kurt saying, Clams, get that garbage Brooklyn Nets shirt off. Knicks are hot, baby. I honestly can't comment on that because I haven't followed the NBA the past few days. But
Let me just say,
congrats.
I bought this shirt. It's a Coney Island shirt. And if it looks like it's a Brooklyn Nets shirt, I don't mean it to be. I got where I'm from, son.
Clams, I'm going to be honest. I think I might have that same exact shirt. Um, Knicks are hot, baby, is what Kurt said. Kurt, congratulations on winning games in November. And we jump down to, this is another Kurt comment. Kurt, I don't believe in that quote. Well, at the time, I agree with that move theory. Look at NFL draft where people had Trubisky rated over Mahomes. That move gets you fired. Yeah, again, I'm not saying that it turned out well. I'm saying that you look back at the situation in which you have to. People want to play revisionist history, and I just think that sometimes there's not just there's got to be some nuanced thinking there, and I think that does not exist, and that's MIA on Yankee social media sometimes. Kenny jumps in. The only way this team gets back to winning is do what the Mets did and trade Cole. I'm
Who's
Kenny, what are you drinking tonight, buddy? Get a boatload of talent and top pitching prospects. Move on from Cashman and build the right way. I can agree with the move on from Cashman. Trading Cole, one of our two very good players. I'm not sure why that would be the optimal move right now, honestly. But Kenny, if you want to say more on that, because you got me stumped here, buddy.
and I know what he's saying. Kenny's saying trade Cole and get a boatload, and he's saying to rebuild. The thing is, Kenny, the Yankees they're not going to sell that to their fan base. They're not going to rebuild. Their logic is to reload, and we're going to get it. We're going to make the playoffs this year. That's what they're saying. Cole's the only player they got that has anything of value, and
Yeah.
and Judge,
Yeah, him and Judge. I came into this offseason saying that Cole and Judge are the only two players I'm not listening on. I'm listening on literally every other player in the organization, including minor leaguers. But no, I heard that too.
They
What?
destroyed Espinal Florio. You know what it was? Like 2017, they went with a different philosophy. They weren't getting. They went like a guy like Sanchez. Like I said from the beginning, they went and got all sluggers. They signed sluggers and they brought up sluggers. That's where they were going with. Nobody defensive. Softball team.
Well, and this is what I'll say to your point, actually, Joey Clams, is back in then, and I was writing for a website at the time. I can't remember which website it was. I believe this was when I was on 6-man rotation, because I hadn't joined Fanside until 2019. So I was working with 6-man rotation, and I had written a piece about how I didn't think the Yankees should get Giancarlo Stanton. I actually thought he would be a fit for the Red Sox. Don't remember what I was arguing with the Yankees to acquire, but I agreed at the time that Stanton was just cannot run but I do agree with you that I think that they had a knee-jerk reaction to the way that they got beaten against Houston, and I think that they saw Houston coming up as they're not going anywhere. But I think that the way that they reacted, and obviously the decisions that they made, even going back to the 2016 trade deadline before that, when they, if you want to call it rebuilt or sold or whatever you want to say, everybody that they got from that deal from those deals, with the exception of Torres, either has been traded or just completely flamed out. So that was a complete bust of a season. Kurt says,
was a talented player.
Go ahead. What?
Torres was a very talented player, but
right.
He's a late, and they never fixed him. They never stopped him from being late. He has so many bad habits. He can't play second base. You'll never win with him at second. No, can't turn. It's so slow receiving and distributing the ball around the bag. Their feet work are terrible. Even though he won the Gold Glove, he's rough around the edges around short. He's rough around the edges.
I definitely wouldn't put him at shortstop, and that's where. And I've been advocating this actually for trading Gleyber Torres this offseason, which I'd be sad to see, obviously, because I do like Gleyber Torres, but you've got a log jam at that center.
What do you like about? What do you like about him?
He's one of our few guys who steals bases. He's one of our few consistent offensive threats at the plate the last 2 years when everybody else sucked. He, excuse me, he's he doesn't strike out. He takes walks. He's literally everything that people like you say that we need more of. And you're trying to trade him. I don't see the.
I know what you're reading off the stat sheet. You ever see him? He strikes
No,
out.
I'm not reading off the stat sheet. I'm going off what I remember from what I read.
Strikes out with runners on base more than anybody on the team. He hits and double plays more than anybody on the team. He's a terrible base runner. I mean, he steals bases, but running the bases, he gets picked off at least once a week. He makes terrible errors. A guy like him, with his, what is he bat, like 265, 20? Guys like that are a dime a
I
dozen. You could,
don't know. I don't think I've read batting averages since I had parts in 2010.
you think batting average is not important, right? Okay.
I don't think it's as important as look again. I care about guys getting on base. I don't care about how they get on base.
Yeah, but batting average is important. You give me somebody who's batting 300. That's a good hitter. That's a good hitter.
Uh, uh, excuse me. Keep losing. He's falling behind on these. Kenny's got you hire Mattingly, and I guarantee players wouldn't be hitting under 200. I guess that's only something we know if it actually materializes for us to see. I
You're right.
didn't have a problem. Wait, what were you saying, Clams?
No, Kenny's right. You know what it is,
Oh,
but they don't want a guy like that. They want everybody to jack the ball out of the park. Mattingly comes on top. Mattingly wants you to hit level and drive the ball for doubles in the gap. Yeah,
that is one area where I'll agree is that hitting for extra bases, but like not home runs, but like doubles and triples. That's something that they've been terrible at. Kenny says I didn't have a problem with Sanchez until he got lazy sitting on one knee. That approach I didn't pick up on. I'll be honest. So that's a good pickup by Kenny because I honestly don't remember that. That's not something that came to my mind. So I'm glad he brought that up because I don't remember seeing that. But I
Scoops did not block a ball. He did not know how to go in a butterfly position, turn his knees in, bring his chest into a 90-degree angle, and block the ball in front of you. He was never taught that. How could you put a guy behind the plate when he doesn't know how to block a ball? He's in the major leagues. This is
they
what
never should. Gary Sanchez, I have said repeatedly, he's one of the worst defensive catchers I've seen. They've kept him at first or they kept him at catcher much longer than they should have. I'm 100% agreeing with Kenny there about having a problem with him behind the plate. I wish that they had turned it over to Higashioka much sooner than they did.
and
Kenny, what?
And here, another thing, when we were talking about Giancarlo Stanton, you're stuck with him for 4 years. He's a broken down valise, and you know what? He's blocking spots for players.
I don't disagree with that. At this point, their best hope for him is to try and get that bat going again once they bring in these new hitting coaches that they're coming in with. But which hopefully James Rosen and the guys that he brings in as assistants will be able to unlock some of that because he was one of our most consistent October offensive performers for a while. But this year, I think at the end of last year as well, he just completely fell off, and I don't know why it happened. I'm sure the injuries.
Scoops, listen to me. Scoops, time out. Listen to me. Run from second base home. He can't run anymore. The Yankees came out and says he cannot run anymore. He cannot run the bases. This is baseball. This isn't Sunday softball. This is baseball. Hello, you there?
Sorry, I don't know what happened there. Can you hear me?
Yeah. Giancarlo Stanton, he can't run from second to home. He was slowing down and he stopped running between third and home in July. He cannot run anymore. The Yankee brass came out and said he can't run anymore. This is baseball. Baseball, you have to know how to throw, run, catch, hit, field. He can't do that. And you know what? Don't you notice every year he goes into a bad slump and he looks terrible and he's out for 6 weeks. It's the same time. Then he comes
Yes, I
back
do
and he's
notice.
you
It's
know what that is? He gets his cycle. Anybody that back in the 80s that was working out at the gym, you seen all the guys like that. He looks just like them. They get it. He has to get rejuiced into a cycle. Doesn't he look like McGuire when McGuire was going on that home run thing? Couldn't even walk or move, and he was all juiced up. I see McGuire at the China Club. The back of his neck was all broken. I was standing right next to him, talking to him, and having a drink with him at the China Club in the city. That was a club in the city Monday night. He was juiced up. Same thing with Stanton. You could see the makeup they put on Stanton. Stanton's got patty cake on, covering all the stuff. He's juiced up. He's a juice bag. That's why you.
I'm not sure what I saw coming out of this show, but you talking about partying with Mark McGuire was not on on my radar. Um, but excuse me. But I again, I don't disagree with the point that Kenny made earlier. Coming down to Jody Moncrief, how you doing, Jody? I think Juan Soto to the Yankees. That's what I'm really hoping for. I think that there's a lot of traction behind that now. Sounds like the other teams involved have what Washington wants, but aren't willing to pay that. Which was, that's an issue that the Yankees have had in the past. Is they either don't have what teams want or they're not willing to pay it. There are I can only think of like 3 players that I wouldn't trade for Juan Soto, and 2 of them are Judge and Cole. Pretty much anybody else I would make untouched or make available to trade for Juan Soto. Um, Jody also comes in and says trade for Jake Myers. We have him on the block. Jody, I think Houston is the last place I'd want to trade for a player from right now. I respect you guys very much, but with our luck, you probably would like put something in his shoes and he'd be out for 8 weeks as soon as he got to New York. Um, Kenny's got Torres swings at first pitch and puts himself in the hole every at bat. Uh, Hang on, and I hit the wrong thing. And then he got guys, a question: why trade Jake Bowers? He gave us depth in outfield and was a lefty bat. You want to answer this first, Clams, and then I'll jump in.
The guy's he's a tomato can. He's a ham. That guy.
What?
He's a. We had to make room. We have to. You got to people. You can't keep everybody. To
Right.
You got to make room. So you got to get rid of the dead weight when you can.
Right. It's one of those things where when you've got a deep farm system, you got the Rule 5 draft coming up, and unfortunately, you can only keep 40 players, and he just was not one that they saw was. He actually kind of fits the mold of what you were talking about earlier, in terms of just doesn't have a ton of defensive value and versatility, unfortunately. So that kind of played a role there, and he also, after he got really hot for a while, he did taper off after that. Jody's coming in. I'll also have Clams answer this first, and then I'll jump in. Who signs Trevor Bauer? That's an interesting story that I brought up last week. What say you on that one, Clamsy?
Well, I would love to. I would love for the Yankees to sign Trevor Bauer. I wouldn't be surprised if the Mets sign him. I wouldn't be surprised if the Mets get. He's going to go to a big market. Maybe the Red Sox. Somebody like that's going to sign him.
I I could definitely see that. In fact, the Mets were the team that had a deal to get him before he went to LA, and then when the initial allegations came out, I think they backed off on it. But the excuse me, but now that more information has come out, I'll say I don't want to go too much into the legal details on this show. But now that more has come out in the last few weeks, I wonder if the Mets and Steve Cohen would give it another look to bring him in, especially because of the guys that they've lost recently out of that rotation, and the guys who they still have but have regressed. What'd you say?
Texas Rangers, they got money up the yin yang. They'll throw money around. They'll sign them.
The Texas Rangers, under their current ownership, and I know John Daniels isn't in his position anymore. They brought in Chris Young instead, but they do a particularly interesting job of being able to get pitchers kind of I don't want to say reborn, but definitely get more out of them than recent teams have been able to do. And then Jody just comes in and says Texas Yankees, which we were both just saying just then. Um, I'm gonna advance here for a little bit. I'm gonna go into some more questions that we had. Um,
I want to give
so this one,
back with you just let me know we're gonna talk about what Cashman did, and I got a statement I want to make about what this guy did, and there's we wouldn't be in this position arguing about players Torres and this and that if Cashman when he said in 2017 he gave Boone the manager job. He says lefties were going to be dinosaurs in baseball. He was going with all righty teams. He says with the shift, he says lefties are going to be out of baseball. So he didn't want Bryce Harper. Bryce Harper wanted to be a Yankee. The Yankees wouldn't even when the guy rang the bell, they wouldn't even answer the door for him. They didn't. They built an all righty team. They didn't. He didn't want Manny Machado. He wanted Donaldson. There's a ton of other players that I'm missing right now with this guy turned his because the lefties with
yeah, I
right there.
I don't have
Door. He should have been shown the door right there that you made that comment out of your mouth that we're not going to have lefties no more. You play in the shortest right field in the major leagues. Will you look back at every Yankee team that won a championship? Look at the lefties that were loaded up on that team. You had 6, 7 lefties loaded on that team, sometimes 8 with the switch hitters on those teams. And all they did was do damage. And this guy wants to change it. And look what he did. He destroyed this organization.
I
He
don't
destroyed.
have I don't have that statement on hand, so I'm not gonna comment on something that I haven't seen or know the context of. Um, Kenny is going back to the Soto point. Question for Soto: are there any prospects or young players who are untouchable? No, that's simple for me. No, Kenny, or I'm sorry, Clamsy.
No, there's nobody. Who? Who do we got? Who? There's not. We don't have any. There's no studs down there.
Yeah,
They'll
no,
tell.
it's
They're always going to tell you. Remember Espinal Florio? He was the greatest thing ever. He's been in the minor leagues for 8 years. Eight
yeah,
years.
no, he was a massive flame out. He was part of the motivation why they didn't sign Bryce Harper, and obviously that worked out like a lead balloon. No, and
But
that goes back to
you bring him up for 13 at bats a year, sprinkled in 4 at bats here, 3 at bats here. That's it. Send them down. You destroyed him. You crushed him. They crushed this guy. They
Kenny's
destroyed.
Kenny's saying I was thinking Dominguez. Yeah, and I was thinking him too, Kenny. I love Jason Dominguez, but again, you're kind of when you get Juan Soto, you're kind of getting what you hope Dominguez can turn into one day. You're getting, tomorrow. So, I would definitely trade Dominguez in that deal, even though I would, I'd hate to lose him, but for Juan Soto, you got to do it. I think.
Let me.
And
Who Cole? What if they wanted Cole in a deal for Soto? What are you going to do? Remember, Cole next year he could opt out anyway from the Yankees.
I doubt that they would ask for that based on where they are in their timeline. Um, I can't see that being a deal that they would make. But if I'm the Yankees and they ask for that, um, I'm at least saying that I need more than Soto in that deal because I'm not. You can't trade a Cy Young winner and a team that hasn't had an elite ace, like a true ace, since Ron Guidry. You can't do that. That defeats the. We're talking about pitching wins championships, and now you're talking about trading an ace pitcher for a left fielder. I could not see that happening.
But
Or at least I wouldn't do it.
here's the thing with the Padres. They got a ton of pitching. My friend's son is a pitcher on the San Diego Padres. Tom Cosgrove. The
Oh, I know
relief.
that name.
Yeah, he's from Staten Island. He went to Monsignor Farrell and he went to Manhattan College. I drink beers with his father. He
I
was a
love that. Um,
They got a
he
ton of over there. And you know what? And Cole is gonna he you know what? He might opt out next year. We give him an extension.
knowing or going off of that, Jody's asking what would you take for Cole, and because in my mind, if we're trading Cole, we're going into a full rebuild at that point. Because again, you just don't trade. quite arguably the best pitcher in baseball outside of Otani, which I don't even know if how Otani's gonna look after his another injury. Um, it's really hard to.
You got to pick at them, and you got to grab a pitcher from them that he might be a year away, but they might want Cole because they're ready to win now.
Yeah, well, that's what I was gonna say is you can't be trading Cole for these guys who are like, they're in single A, they're in rookie ball, whatnot. If I'm trading Cole, I need a package of several players that I can start winning with in a year or two max. So I need guys who are cutting it at triple A, double A at bare minimum, and I'm gonna need some guys who are already in the majors.
A Scoops, but you would trade Montgomery for Beta, right?
I don't see the connection here at all, but
But you said you like that trade. You gave away a lefty starter.
yeah, because again, we're talking about two different scenarios here with a lot of different dynamics and specifics behind them. It's a straw man argument. I'm not going to get bit into the. I would love Cole back with Houston, and Jody. I'd love to get a direct message from Shakira. I can't see that happening either. I've got Kenny's got. If I'm trading with Astros, which I would never do, I agree with that. You're giving me their top young pitcher in MLB or AAA and Kyle Tucker. Yeah, I agree. Tucker probably has to be in that package. I'm not super familiar with Astros pitching. The one name out of Astros pitching in farm system depth is Forrest Whitley, and he has been a massive disappointment from where he was a few years ago. I know that because I drafted him in a dynasty league, and he has completely flopped. So I'm not sure what I would ask for from him, but it's going to be especially to trade him to our biggest rival in the AL right now. Absolutely not. Not something that I don't think there's anybody you can't trade with, but I'm asking for a damn lot more from Houston than I am from anybody else.
Am I? Well, you remember I'm older than you. Who's your biggest rival in the AL? You're saying
Houston.
Come on, you can't even get out of your own division. You lost twice to the Red Sox.
We've lost 3 times to Houston, and 2 of those were in the biggest series of the season in the ALCS. I care about getting past Houston. I know we can get past Boston. What I don't know is what I know we can't do is get past Houston.
When did you get past Boston? Never.
Boston has not made it to the ALCS in, I think, any of the last 5 years, 6 years.
What are you talking about? Got out of the playoffs twice in the last couple of years. Twice.
And Houston has
runs. They scored 16 runs against us in Yankee Stadium.
I know. I was at the damn game. I was
our game and lost that one.
I was at the game where we lost by 15. Which.
Okay, you got to worry about your division first. You can't worry about the Astros. They're not your rivalry. They own you. You know what a rivalry is? A rivalry is when it's back and forth. They own us. That's not a rivalry.
Okay. Then I'll rephrase it. The team that you have to beat in your league conference, whatever the hell you want to call it, is Houston. If you want to,
it's your division first. You got to beat the Orioles. You got to beat the Red Sox. You got to beat the Blue Jays. You got to beat the Red Sox, the Rays. That's who you got to be first. Get out of your division first. When you
I agree, but how has the Yankees season ended in half of the last 6 seasons has been at the hands of I can't get into the World Series.
No, what do you call it? Red Sox beat them twice, and the Rays beat them.
Yeah, and the other 3 were Houston. That's my point. Is that consistently the most common foe at the end of the season that kicks us out is Houston.
You win your division first. That's what you do. You don't look. You're looking all the way on the other side of the water. You got to build the bridge first. You got to win your division first. I'm teaching you something now. That's what you do. That's what happens when you walk into that locker room in spring training. This is what you do. You work to win your division in all sports. That's what they do. Your job is to win the division. That's your first step. That's what.
one second, phone. Um, Before I get back on that, Jody says we have. I think he means 8 starters. Um, oh, he's going back to the trade talks for Cole, probably. Kenny says biggest rival will always be Boston, and Jody says forget Houston. Baltimore runs that division now. I want to see what they.
Hold on, let me educate Kenny now. Kenny, when was you know what was a big rivalry that nobody knows about? Yankees and Orioles was a big rivalry in the '60s. You know what? Because your rivalry is the Orioles used to pound the Yankee from the mid '60s, from '65 all the way to '75. The Orioles pounded the Yankees' heads in, pounded. And even after that too, they were still good in the mid '70s and '80s also.
I,
The
I don't disagree with that, but those guys aren't playing now. I'm concerned about the guys who are on the current roster, and I'm.
Scoops, let's go. Let's. What are we going to do with this team this year? What do we got to do coming up? We need a third baseman. What are we doing for third base?
Talking excuse me, looking at our well, because obviously we got rid of Donaldson. um I think that what's most likely is probably running out either LeMahieu or uh I'm guessing it's either going to be LeMahieu or Torres, because I'm guessing that they're going to put Volpe at second, and keep Peraza at short. Peraza needs to be at shortstop. I don't understand why people keep trying to make Volpe at shortstop a thing. He's a second baseman. Peraza's a true shortstop. So I would have to say that LeMahieu's going to be a third baseman.
LeMay's not a third baseman. He's not
I
a
know he's
third.
not.
Okay? So here's the problem right there. Here's what I told you. Fixing your defense. That's not fixing your defense. He's not a third baseman.
I,
Happy at third.
I'm
If
sorry.
you
I think I was answering your question a little bit differently. I'm sorry. I was saying going into that, as the depth chart stands, that's who would play third base. But in
oh,
terms of, yeah, my apologies. So no, going out and getting somebody. I'd have to. I know that this past year they looked at Hammer Candelario from Washington. He's somebody that I would look at. Um, probably would be the main one that I would look at, would actually be Candelario, just because I need somebody, like you said, who can succeed on both sides of the ball. I need somebody who is a true third baseman, because and this is what I didn't understand is they brought in Isaiah Kiner-Falefa, who is better at third base than he is at shortstop, and they pretty much never played him at third base. It's so, which I didn't understand either. You brought in IKF, which he actually was one of our most clutch hitters in a good number of scenarios, but they put him at shorts. They keep playing these guys out of position, which I know is a point that you're making, and I that one I agree with you on.
all right. Stop talking about a last place team like kind of Filippo. Hey, so what about Chapman? What about signing Chapman at third? The guy's a Gold Glove third baseman. He's going to hit you about 27 ding dongs.
I 100% I 100% would go after Chapman. I don't see that being a deal that they can make. I think that he wants to be some. I think that he. I don't remember what I heard. I remembered where he wanted to be somewhere specific. I couldn't remember where it was, but yeah, if you can throw a big amount of money of him, get into New York, absolutely do it.
He's only 28 years old.
Yeah, no, I think that'd be a great fit. Again, I question their ability to actually bring him to New York.
Got
Um,
to that side of the field though. It's terrible. The 5-6 hole
Absolutely,
is.
absolutely, and that's why I said Peraza better be the shortstop, because he's the only natural shortstop on that roster. Volpe is not a natural shortstop, and his bat will play up better if you put him at second base. Just want to move on to a couple of the more questions, because I don't want to push us past the buzzer this week. If you had to keep one of Boone or Cashman, who would it be and why? And I know you don't like either one of them, but I'm just asking you, if you had to keep one of them, who would it be?
I get rid of Cashman,
I
and
agree with you on that.
I have to get rid of Cashman because he's the one that destroyed this team. He made this team a dumpster fire. This organization right now is a dumpster fire. They could throw all the sugarcoat everything, and we're getting this guy. This is a dumpster fire. This is terrible. If I have to have a choice, Cashman's got to go, and I'll surround Boone with professionals.
I
Old
agree. I do agree with you on that. Just going back to DJ, Joey's saying, or Jody rather, is saying. So what are you doing with DJ if you get a different third baseman? I'm just probably just eating the last couple years of his contract and DFAing him. I can't see. The only other thing that I can see is if they let go of Rizzo, maybe keeping him as the full time first baseman. But but I think letting go of Rizzo, knowing what he means to that organization as just as a culture leader, I can't really see that he would be.
You young people get too caught up in that stuff with all, but it's caught up in that stuff. That nobody cares about that stuff. You know what?
Well, I don't know what stuff you're talking about. You keep saying that stuff. I don't know what you're talking about.
Like, oh, he means a lot to this organization. What do you mean? He's been here 2 years.
They've just been. That's what they. Again, and I'm not saying that they belong in the same conversation, but going back to that's what people say with the core four with about guys like Bernie Williams, like he's not or Tino Martinez or Paul O'Neill or whatever. They're not in the Hall of Fame necessarily, or MLB like legends, but they're guys who were important to that run. And I'm saying that Rizzo is in a similar situation.
Bernie Williams was a Yankee since he was 16 years old. Rizzo came to the Yankees when he was 33. We got him for 2 years, and he missed a year. So he played a year and a half maybe. He's not a Yankee. I don't like him. What does he do for the franchise? What does he do for the franchise?
I'm just saying that there's a reason why a lot of the team around him were pushing for him to bring him back.
Because they don't know any better. It's a bad culture in there. They don't know any better. Look at them. They're soft. This is the softest Yankee team I ever seen in my life. Soft. They're soft. The coaching staff is soft. The front office, the players.
You keep saying soft. Like, can you explain what you mean? Because you keep just repeating this. I'm not sure. I don't even know how to respond because I don't know what you're saying.
Soft is, you know what? Not laying out, not leaving your blood and your guts on the field and putting out 100% every time you get on the field. Running out a ball full speed. Playing every day. Being a team player, hustling, practicing base running, practicing small ball, and get it running over for your teammate. Not doing what you're doing, and making this thing turn into a clown show all year round. With they never won a game in extra innings. They didn't know how to manage a game from the ninth inning on, and they still got.
What's interesting is last year actually. And I'm not disagreeing with you here when I say this. Last year I think it was 2022. They actually played a good amount more small ball than they were, but then they got away from that for reasons I don't quite understand. And then Kenny's got a question for both of us. Why do we see players struggle so much here and succeed elsewhere? Sonny Gray, Nathan Eovaldi, Aaron Hicks, et cetera. I think it's a part of it. I think it's just because of one. I think that there's a mental, I don't know. I think it's like a psychological thing that being in New York does to you, because obviously it's a different level of intensity. The fans are rabid, and when I say rabid, I'm talking. Clams is shaking his head at me already, but I'm looking at I mean, we heard about what Joey Gallo said when he left New York. There are certain people and certain players. Zach Greinke is one who said he would never play in New York. There's just certain players who that's not what they thrive on. They don't thrive on that level of just, I don't want to say tough love, because it can be legitimate, just like rigid, rabid nature of the fans, and looking at. I'll go back to the Gallo situation because I'm not sure about the Sonny Gray one, but you had Sonny Gray coming out or Joe Gallo coming out and basically talking about getting harassed with his family and kids and one thing or another. I think that there's sometimes it's one thing to on social media, because social media is everywhere now, but I just think that there's players that it just affects more, and they don't have I don't want to say they don't have the ability to block it out, but it just affects them on a different level, and I think that it doesn't help in that regard, because again, Sonny Gray, where he succeeded was smaller markets. Aaron Hicks, he was successful in Minnesota and Baltimore, which is again just not the same places as New York. It looked like you were trying to say something while I was speaking, Clams. What's going on?
Yeah, you know what? Maybe 15% of that is right, but stop using that as an excuse. You know what happens? The Yankees ruin players. You know what they used to do to Sonny Gray? They wouldn't let him throw fastballs. They used to do that to Patanzas. They had this thing about not throwing fastballs. Everything was all speed. I know because I know Charlie Wansowitz. He was with the bar out in New Jersey and Oakland, the Rail House. It's called W's up there, and father's got a joint in Staten Island. They hung out in there for the last 40 years. He was part of the Yankee. Charlie Watson was part of the Yankee staff. He says the new regime was ruining these players, and that's why they were confusing them and messing them up. That's what happened with the Yankee players. That's why they look what happens now. Do they ever fix anybody? Name a player that came to the Yankees and got better.
Well, are you talking just pitching? Or talking in general?
Everybody we get goes down. Gleyber Torres, all that talent he came with, talented guy. Remember the first year, he looked great, and all of a sudden you let him. They don't
That's what
coach. They don't.
that's what I say is Cashman and his front office, because I know it's not just him. It's Fishman, it's Hendry, it's Naring, all those guys in the front office. Which again, people like pointing the arrows at Cashman and at Boone specifically. They forget that there's a whole operation behind this. But looking at them, because I know that he's the front man. They've got this ability to go on and just nail these acquisitions of these just no-name players, these younger players, or these guys who are in on 1-year deals, and then the big swings, the Rodons, the Sonny Grays, the I can't think of another name right now.
Hey, let me tell you, Dave Martinez. I told you my friend that's his best friend.
Yeah, I know who that is. Yeah,
He says these kids come from down in the farm up. He says they come unprepared. He says they do not know fundamental. They're not taught. Say guys coming from the Dominican Republic, once they get it, they're only teaching you that the philosophy of a lot of organizations is wrong. They're doing what the Yankees were doing. You see how bad the Yankees are fundamentally around the infield, around playing small ball, baseball, cutoffs. They're terrible cutoffs that we get thrown out of bases. The Yankees don't teach fundamentals no more. That's what happens, and that's what happened. And Davey says that a lot of kids come up.
Think you've got an issue where you've got organizations like the Dodgers, the Astros, Atlanta, whoever you want to say, that get it right in terms of blending, if you want to call it the traditional way, the old way of baseball, with how the thinking has shifted and developed into, kind of bringing in new information about, pitching science and the way that different guys have, fixed their mechanics in one way or another, the way that guys, can change things with their swings and whatnot. I think that kind of trying to find that blend of, how to put everything together in a winning formula. And I think that's where the Yankees have failed on top of, in ways that, Houston, LA, Atlanta, et cetera, have succeeded. And I'm going to I want to get through the rest of these comments before we have to go.
From before about the Dodgers, that's what I was talking about. And you went on to something, and I missed something saying Dodgers. The Dodgers got a great scouting team.
Absolutely.
Their center fielder, that rookie kid, you know where he came from? Sacramento State. He was batting 250, and one of the scouts says, "No, this kid, we can fix him." I says, "This kid's got the talent." And as a rookie, he was playing center field for the Dodgers last year. See what they do? They see talent, and they know how to fix it and adjust it. The Yankees don't.
I didn't even know Sacramento State was a school, but yeah, no, and that was what I was saying to you. What I was saying before is that there's a way that baseball has and evaluating talent and scouting and whatnot has developed, and the Yankees, I think, tried, because they were behind on it. I think that they tried so hard to jump forward, and then I think that they missed a lot of that development of kind of blending all of that together. That again, that LA, Atlanta, whoever you want to say, Houston, we're all getting right a lot more. Now I've got like 20 comments here I got to get through real quick. The Yankees won't be I think that means competitive. I don't quite know. Until they get the right people in place. I agree with Sis on that. They have to get the right people in place.
It's a mess.
Mr. Pillow Soft Joey Clams. I don't know what the hell that means, um, but hopefully you do because I don't know what that means.
Who's that?
Sis again saying Yankees don't play small ball. Kenny says, Joe, they can't run a ball out because they would pull a hammy and be out for 6 months. Huge disgrace the Yankees are right now. I can't say that I disagree with that scenario that he just illustrated. Denver Bronco roundup. Joey, this is Keith. How would different this team? Okay, this take I never understand. How people say if George Steinbrenner were alive, this wouldn't be the case. George Steinbrenner had like 20 losing seasons or close to 20 losing seasons before that dynasty came up with Stick
Never,
Michael and
never. Which one he's losing seasons?
20 seasons without a title. Yes, they did. It was 78 to 96.
And remember, Scoops, there was no wild card back then.
I know,
Right?
but I'm saying that, but the fact is that they still went almost 2 decades under his. So the fact that him coming in without Stick Michael there, without some of the guys that they had, without Brian Sabian is there now, but a lot of these guys who were there that were influential in building the '90s dynasty just randomly put or just throwing back George and God rest his soul. I love George Steinbrenner. I think he was fantastic for the game and just in general. But to say that this team, I think he would have completely had this team in a much better position. I don't think that there's 100% conclusive or even close to that that's the case.
100%, it would have never went this way. And let me stop you because you're in my neck of the woods now. Don't rattle on. I'll tell you about Steinbrenner, what he did. He came here and he bought the Yankees, and you know what? And they were a garbage pail. They were a crap hole.
I know.
When he got them, they were a disaster. When he
Right.
got them, you know what he did? He got him. He put a manager in place. He got a manager. He got Billy Martin, the best field manager I ever seen. Who could manage a game. Nobody could manage a game like Billy. And then he put good people around him. And he went to the World Series 3 years in a row. And he won. And after he got swept, and you know what he did? He brought in Reggie Jackson. Okay, he went. He did what he had to do to win, and he did it. You know what? And then you know what he did? Then he hit a wall. But they did have the best record in the '80s. No, they had the best record in the '80s, so they didn't lose 20 years in a row. They had the best record in the '80s. And we remember there's only one you had to win your division. Wasn't 16? You had to win your division.
So Kenny's got so many A's and never done anything. He's 100% right on this one. I'll go as far back as Eric Chavez. Chavez, actually, they just looked at for bench coach. I think it was. He just got moved back to hitting.
He would have listened. He would have never had the people in place that are there. He always had Yankees around. He always had Yankees around dugout. The new regime with Cashman and Son, they got rid of all the old Yankees. They got rid of Yankees, and they bring in these potatoes.
I lost you for a second, but again, I'm getting really behind on comments, so I don't mean to cut you off, but
yeah, I'm not going to let you say something about Steinbrenner. I'm not going to say something back. You went on and you minutes about him. And Steinbrenner would have had the right people. He would have had Yankees. The new regime, the Cashman and the Son, got rid of all the old Yankees. They threw Reggie Jackson out of the building. There was no old Yankees, any Yankees in that dugout. It's a mess. Their way was the wrong way. George would have never had that. George had Yankees all around. He had once a Yankee, always a Yankee. He took care of everybody. That's what he did. So don't knock George Steinbrenner. He's got 5. How many rings does Steinbrenner got? He's got 6 rings.
6, I think it is.
He's got 6.
And again, I think he's a great owner. I'm not trying to knock him at all. I'm just saying that I don't think that the sole change of him being the owner still, I don't think would have this team 100% different.
Bryce Harper would have been a Yankee, 1,000%.
That, excuse me. Obviously, that looks like the right move now. Unfortunately, Sis says Houston Astros. Sorry, sis, I lost context on that one. Um, Joey, what are your thoughts on analytics? Oh, I have this argument with Kurt so often. Go ahead, Joey.
Hey, listen, I'm a ham and egg horse player when Belmont, Saratoga, and I get I read the racing form. That's analytics. I look at it. You know what?
Right.
You use it. You know what? You use it as a guide,
Yeah.
but you got to use the got to use the heart and the pulse and guide. Yo, yo, whoa, yo.
I lost you there. Can you still hear me?
Yeah, I hear you. What are you doing?
No, the connection's terrible. But no, I'm saying I think that's 100% right, and I think you said that as much better than I could have. So um, about the analytic part of things. Um, Eddie
But I
or
got
Sis says, do you guys? Again, the connection's falling off.
yeah. What do you call
Can you
from?
still hear me?
I hear you now.
Okay, cool. Um,
I got a
Sorry,
got a
and then
hold on. I'm answering. I got a more of a problem with resting guys when they don't need to be rested.
another good point. Sorry, it's my connection's really messed up right now. So I was getting you it. Um, you're live with me now, right? You can hear me in real time. All right, I apologize for that.
Yes.
The I apologize for that to you, Joey Clams, and to the people. So, um, and then Kenny says one more question: what do the Yankees have to do to get not only Orioles but also Rays and Blue Jays to contend vision? Because I can't even watch what we put on the field. Sorry, just can't. In my mind, it's Yamamoto, Soto, and at least one infielder.
Yeah, they need a third baseman. They need a second baseman. Scoop says they're going to move Volpe over to second. He thinks, and they're going to go with Peraza at short. I like that. I mean, but I think that people might get a stink eye about that moving a Gold Glover over. That's to me. I don't know. I don't think he's a Gold Glover. I think he's decent, and he hustles. He plays hard. I like him. You need a left fielder. You need some lefty pop. You need lefty pop in your lineup consistently. You need a lot. They're a mess. Their bullpen. You need a closer. You have to have a closer because how
Yeah,
good everybody say the bullpen was. Hey, second half of that season from the All Star break on, that the eighth and ninth inning, we were a disaster.
no, that was I agree with you on that. The bullpen, which was actually a strength for a while, as soon as once we started losing guys like Batanzas and um, Chad Green and whatnot, I think letting Chad Green go was an underrated mistake. But yeah, no, I the late in games, I know our record late in games this year was not good. And then Kenny says, and Otani would be a Yankee next year. Still don't 100% agree with that because I think that, again, he hasn't liked historically, he says he hasn't liked the bigger markets. He says he wants to be in the West Coast. Now, you can make the argument, sure, that, if you give him enough money, he'll come there. But my understanding is also that his free agency is not really being driven by money.
I heard the Cubs are going to throw a lot of money at him.
I heard that as well. But again, and this is what I keep saying. That's what I was about to say about Freddie Freeman earlier when you mentioned him. They can throw whatever they want at him. If a player doesn't want to play there, there might just not be an amount of money.
This fucking guy.
I'm sorry. Just one question, then we'll have to sign off, I think, because one.
Yeah. All right.
So sorry about that.
Yeah. All right. All right. Well, we got to get. I got some people who want to come on, and they want to. They want to get on live with you and debate you. Yankee baseball. What's going on? What are you calling me from? You don't got no Wi-Fi where you live?
I ended up having to be out tonight. So
Oh, all right. Oh, hey.
I'm
Good.
doing the show from the car. But
All right. I'll see you later. Yeah. Yeah. Oh.
anymore. Clams.
All right.